drückst immer nur one at a time, ne?
Hole die Ja rein und dann stellst du sie ein bisschen genauer vor auf Englisch.
Erst vor?
Ja.
Dann drückst du beide. Ich glaube, Cody und
Ja, die holen wir zusammen. Und dann sagst du noch was zu denen? Nee.
du machst dann die Ebene.
Okay.
Irgendwas, was du bei denen zu Hause warst.
Ja.
Ein bisschen
Okay.
persönlich wird.
Ja.
Dann sollen die sich erstmal dazu finden.
Ja.
Dann holen wir die anderen zwei.
Um mit denen dann gleich zu starten. Okay.
Viel sinnvoller. Also wir fangen mit
Ja, das stimmt. ZSOLT KOVÁCS an. Na gut. Ja, okay.
Oder?
1, 2, 1, 2, 3. We can start right now. Okay, es beginnt eine nächste Session hier in der International Lounge mit spannenden Leuten aus aller Welt. Wen haben wir da, Anja?
Herzlich willkommen erstmal hier und ich weiß, es werden noch mehrere gleich dazukommen. Wir haben ganz interessante Leute und was ich erstmal sagen muss, wir haben so viele Nationalitäten hier, ne? Wie viele haben wir insgesamt?
Ich glaube 15 Nationalitäten
15
oder so.
Allein hier, ne?
Ja,
also Wahnsinn, richtig cool. Es kommen sicher noch mehr dazu. Sagen wir ganz kurz noch was zu Facebook Live. Facebook Live ist gerade online, wir sind schon drauf. Hier steht, wie man da auch hinkommen kann. Ganz tolle Möglichkeit, darunter auch Fragen zu stellen. Herzlich willkommen online auch, ja, da draußen. Wer eine Frage hat oder einen Kommentar, einfach zu diesem Link gehen oder ihr seid schon online und dann dort drunter einfach kommentieren, Fragen stellen und wir werden darauf eingehen. Ich werde nachher einfach gucken, was da für Fragen kommen und dann werde ich da gerne drauf eingehen.
Insbesondere unsere Interviewpartner aus den USA und Norwegen werden auf Englisch reden. Wer kein Englisch versteht, darf sich in der Mitte aufhalten. Da gibt es dann im Flüsterton auch eine Übersetzung. Bei unserem dritten Gast, da wird die Ansprache in Deutsch sein und wer das nicht versteht, kann
einfach
ebenso
auf
eine
Englisch.
Übersetzung bekommen.
Genau, also da in der Mitte wäre das. Sarah wird da nachher sein. Sie ist gerade noch nicht da, aber gleich. Genau, was wir noch sagen, ist die Hashtags vielleicht.
Ja.
Hashtags, wer möchte und einen Beitrag teilen möchte, kann einfach einen Hashtag setzen. Vielleicht, wenn hier so ein Bild gemacht wird wie gerade und es gepostet wird, einfach Hashtag International Lounge und dann einfach das kurz. Wenn es gehashtagt wird, können wir das nachträglich auch nochmal nachvollziehen, unsere Likes draufsetzen und das vielleicht auch noch verwerten, wie auch immer. Also deswegen, das wäre klasse, wenn wir da noch einen Hashtag bei jedem Beitrag haben.
So ist es. Lang genug gewartet. Wir legen los. Wer kommt durch die rote Tür zuerst? HERMUND Haaland. Wir haben einen Start-up-Entrepreneur aus Norwegen. Ich heiße willkommen HERMUND Haaland.
Only you. Welcome on stage. We had a nice talk before, and it's interesting what you did. I will just start in German real quick to introduce, and then let's go. Wir hatten gerade schon ein ganz tolles Gespräch und HERMUND Haaland ist Gründer und internationaler Direktor von Skaperkraft und das ist in Oslo. Ich finde das Projekt total interessant. Er hat gerade ein Buch auch geschrieben und hinten liegt das auch. Wer das möchte, kann das gerne dort auch holen. Startup Europe, wie junge Unternehmer Europa verändern. Ich konnte da ein paar Einblicke vorhin im Gespräch rausziehen. Total spannend. Ich könnte noch ganz viel sagen, aber ich glaube, wir hören das nachher im Gespräch und wir werden da noch drauf eingehen. I could say way more, but we'll talk later.
Sehr gut Deutsch.
Oh, sehr gut. You can have a seat as long as we introduce the others, okay? We'll hear from you later.
Okay, another one is from Hungary, ZSOLT KOVÁCS. ZSOLT, come through the red door.
Yes.
Thank you.
ZSOLT KOVÁCS hat Rechts- und Staatswissenschaften ja, an verschiedenen Universitäten studiert, ist Master of Business Administration, hat einen Abschluss gemacht für verschiedene ungarische und ausländische Firmen und Branchen. Sehr spannend auch dazu reden. Wir haben bei ihm das Thema Massenmarkt Pflegekräfte. Wir sind gespannt, was wir nachher dazu hören werden.
Great to have you with us. Thanks. And last but not least, and we will start with them, are the guests from the States, Houston, an entrepreneurial family, father and son, Art and Cody Nicholson.
Yay. Welcome on stage. Art and Cody Nicholson, I will just introduce you in German real quick, sind beide Immobilienmakler, Investoren, vor allen Dingen Art hat da lange Jahre das gemacht, seit 83 ist er schon im gewerblichen Immobilienmarkt tätig, also lange Erfahrung schon da, gibt das weiter an seinen Sohn und zusammen haben sie ein mega geniales Projekt auf die Beine gestellt, von dem wir nachher hören. Ich glaube, ich erzähle gar nicht mehr, weil es ist so spannend, darüber auch nachher zu hören. Und Sie werden es nachher vorstellen, wenn wir miteinander reden.
So, thanks for being with us. It's a great privilege to have you here. And we have a great hospitality. I was in Houston in November. We had a great time together, and you have an exciting project. So it's your time. You have some slides with you. Yes. So Cody, please start.
It's your stage.
Thank you so much, Timo. I have my slides here. Perfect. Hello. Thank you for having me here at the WA Business Coalition. My name is Cody Nicholson, and this Business for Transformation is the non-profit side of our for-profit business. Back in the States, we manage a fund of real estate just under about 200 million in operational assets. And so we take private equity and we use the private equity to produce income-producing real estate cash flows for our investors. So, Business for Transformation was birthed from this idea. And so this capital group now takes investor dollars, invests it in income-producing real estate, and then takes around and uses those profits to support ministry for long-term investing. So, short-term giving versus long-term investing. Real quick, whenever we give dollars to a ministry or a Christ-centered nonprofit organization, that nonprofit organization will use those dollars for the fiscal year. But then, the following year, those dollars need to be raised again to support that group. Our model changes the way people do the giving, and it's a long-term investing. And so the way that we change that is we ask those givers to make donations to a capital group that invests those same dollars into a machine. And that machine is real estate, and that real estate produces long-term cash flows, which then support ministry long-term. So as opposed to giving your dollars to a nonprofit one time, we ask that you give those dollars to the capital group to produce a long-term giving investment. This is our transformation model. Essentially, B4T, or Business for Transformation Capital, invest in multifamily communities. This can be anything from apartments to manufactured housing to any other real estate machine that produces a cash flow long-term. We then use the profits from these investments to sustain nonprofits long-term. What that means is that B4T Capital will buy a project, an apartment complex, or any income-producing real estate and use those cash flows to sustain any nonprofit organization for years and years to come, as opposed to a one-time gift. Then B4T partners with local Christ-centered churches in the area where that community, that apartment complex, that manufactured community was purchased, and it partners long-term with a church. For instance, we could partner with a group or a church that matches the local community. So if it's a Spanish community, we will partner with a Spanish church. B4T offers 3 different types of investing. The first is one-time donation, or a designated gift, where the B4T transformation model goes straight through. invest in a capital fund. We then designate the cash flow from that property that you invest in through our group to sustain the nonprofit that you choose for long-term sustainability. The second option that we offer is called donor lending. And donor lending is when someone invests in B4T Capital Fund. We then use those dollars to sustain a nonprofit, but then after a 5 to 10 year period, we're able to give those dollars back as a loan. And the third option is partnered with Trinity Communities Group, where we produce a mixed return. And a mixed return is where we offer an investor the option to invest in the fund. A portion of the fund produces a return of capital back to the investor, and another percentage of the fund goes back to the nonprofit of their choosing. Business for Transformation works. What we're doing is we're asking people to think a little bit differently about the way they give. If you have a nonprofit that you're looking to raise funds for, we ask that instead of taking the funds, a one-time gift, that you allow those funds to be invested. And by investing in those into real estate, we're allowing people to create long-term sustainability for their organization. And we believe that this long-term sustainability through this annuity leaves a legacy long to come. So instead of giving your dollars one time to a nonprofit that you really support, we ask that you invest those dollars first. And then after they're invested, allow us to produce a long-term legacy in your name for that organization that you choose. So, that being said, we ask that people give, and that giving be invested, and that those investments produce a yield, and then allow that yield to transform the communities that we purchase and invest in, but also we use that investment to put off cash flow for long years to come that'll support ministry and Christ-centered nonprofits for times to come. Thank you, Timo.
Thanks a lot, Cody, for that
Yes.
introduction and
Yes.
insights. And it's a really interesting model to support Christian ministries by business. So mobile home parks, which I visited last year in the Houston area, is not that much known in the German and European environment. It's much more used in the States. So tell us a little bit about this business model of a mobile home park and the social impact and also spiritual impact you have with that parks.
Yes, so manufactured housing is something I think very unique to the United States. Basically, imagine in your mind that they're building a home in a factory, and that home is then transported on a truck to a predetermined location where we'll put 400 houses on one piece of land, and we'll put streets, and it'll become a neighborhood. Except instead of building the home on location, it's produced in a factory and shipped in a truck, and we call that manufactured housing. And so we then use these communities to produce rental income, which then cash flow to give nonprofits their basis for operation. The beauty of this is that since we own the communities in which we invest into, we're then able to allow nonprofits like churches and Christ-centered organizations like prison ministries and other ministries that then work in cooperation with our group to step in and reach out to that community. So we then can offer teaching courses for people who may need English as a second language, or we may allow them to partner with a church that they would not necessarily have the connection with. A lot of the people that move into our communities travel around the country. Maybe they're plumbers or electricians, and we are able to offer them a family connection in a church that's local through this model.
Wow, great. So you can improve the life quality of people in that parks and use the earnings to support ministry and Christian organizations. Yes. So Art, you have founded that organization or company more than 20 years ago. How's the development of this business of mobile home parks, and what could you assume for Germany, for Europe?
How would we use it for Germany and Europe? The idea, the vision is if someone wanted to invest money in a ministry, for example, in Germany, and they wanted that money to create cash flow, if they wanted to, they could invest the money, as Cody mentioned, in one of our investment opportunities, and then we would send the money to the ministry in Germany that is notated by the investor. That's the way we see it could make a difference. We're trying to do this in Romania, Germany, and in France as we speak.
I have heard a quote which says, a donation dollar has just one life, but a business dollar has multiple lives. So is that the core of that concept, to say we not just donate it for one time, but invest it, which creates some kind of more capital at the end?
Yes. One of the, if you call it the important motivation, was so many ministry in the States, you give them $1 today, and in 3 months, 6 months, they need another $1. And so it seems like they're constantly fundraising. If you can create an income stream by taking the money that people normally give that ministry and invest it, you're able to support that ministry with sustainable income. And here's what's important. You take away all the multiple time that must be used to raise money. You now give them back time to really do something for the gospel.
Cody, whenever I'm in Houston, you have a board, or you are just building a new park, new houses, so it's a fast development. How's the market for this kind of mobile home parks?
That's a great question, Timo. So in the United States, at the moment, because of the large influx of immigrants, mainly from Mexico and Central America, and also the expansion in the southern United States of oil and gas refining, we find that there is a large influx of blue-collar and localized workers that are in the blue-collar force. And so we, at the moment, are building these manufactured communities across the state, and they are filling up with renters faster than we can physically build them. It is a great time in Texas right now.
Wow, great.
Yes.
And how can we participate in that organization, that movement, B4T?
Great.
What can we do?
So there are a few options if you'd like to participate in Business for Transformation. One would be if you are a contributor to a nonprofit or a church or a localized Christ-centered ministry. You can then invest into a piece of real estate through Business for Transformation, and then we'll designate the profits from that investment to the charity or nonprofit that you designate. The second option is if you are a nonprofit or a Christ-centered organization and you'd like to redirect some of the funds coming to your group into income-producing real estate, we can help build long-term sustainability for your organization. And we have all the financial management tools, accounting, and legal to help someone successfully get onto the road of long-term financial independence.
Thanks, Cody.
Yes.
What are your questions about this model? Please.
Does the people who live in this community have a stigma? Kind of like, do they get stigmatized by other people around? For example, you say, I grew up in this area, and then maybe later on a person who wants to give you a job says, oh, you come from this area, this is suspicious, because these are maybe cheap rentals, kind of.
Cheap rentals as in like low-income housing?
Yes.
So a lot of the new manufactured housing that we build is what we call AAA, which means that they are gated communities with paved roads and new units. So I think I'm answering your question, maybe I'm not, but what we do is there's a very stringent application process where we look at every person that moves into that property and we make sure that there's no criminal background history and that community is safe. Did that answer your question? What was your question?
I mean, you want to support ministry through your project. Where's the social aspect? I mean, ministry is important, but yes, the social aspect is kind of missing for me.
Okay, so when you say social aspect, are you asking what does B4T do for the community? Okay, that's a great question. So, for instance, we have a property in Houston that we just completed about a year ago, and we give one of the units in that property for free to one of the churches, the pastors, he lives in that unit with his family and children for free. And what we ask of that pastor is that with his free time, that they go out and minister to the community. And I don't mean knocking on doors and causing problems. What I mean is that we have a fund that he's supported by, that he's able to go out and rent bouncy castles for the children. During Thanksgiving, which is a U.S. holiday where we eat turkey, we give away free turkeys, and we invite the community to come out. And then we have a worship service with the church where we have a band and a stage built at the community, and we invite people to come out and experience each other and get to know their fellow people that live in the community, but we also offer them classes and the ability to get involved. And I think that that's really important and allows people who normally wouldn't know their neighbors the ability to go out and get involved with their local community. And I think that's the social aspect that it offers.
Thank you, Cody.
Yep.
Do we have further questions? Other aspects, comments, anything else? Oh, again.
Sorry. So if you say if this is AAA, how can people from countries like you said, like the immigrants from South America, afford to live in your houses?
That's a good question. So these AAA properties are gated, they have cameras for security, and they have new units. But that doesn't mean that the rents are so high that people can't afford to live in them. It's called affordable housing for a reason. And so the rents in the United States are usually between $300 US dollars to rent the land, and then maybe $1,000 to rent a house. And so that's about the middle of the market for Houston, but in other areas of the country it differs greatly depending on the marketplace. But we aim to hit a very special select group of people that meet that blue collar need. Yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
The immigrant that we're used to that comes from Mexico and South America is much different than the immigrant I think that you've experienced here. The typical family that comes from south of the United States is hungry to work and build a better life. And they come and they work extremely hard. The typical family is religious, hardworking, and they stay together. It's a very good combination. So you'd be very surprised how profitable they are when they come. So they're a big benefit to our society.
Many thanks, Art. Yeah. Oh, here's the question. Yeah.
In the basic financial model, there is a difference to the classic way of giving. For example, if I give to an NGO $100, they could immediately lose the $100 in the following year. If I give to your group $100, they will only get the interest rate in the following year. That means 4 or 5%. That means $4 or $5. So there is a difference of $95 in the first year. The continuous is quite long, but the difference is quite high. So that means it's like investing in a fund or something that could be also another one or a foundation. So that's the point. How you're going to solve that? Because there will be if people give more to your organization, they will have a need in the first years.
Yes, that's an interesting point. Number one, the fund does not produce 4 or 5%. It's actually much greater than that, but it's not 100% at all or close to it. So how do we create 100%? The answer is we don't. We don't expect an NGO or a nonprofit to give 100% of their funds to Business for Transformation. What we ask, though, is like the average household that saves money each year into an account, that they start to invest so that maybe in 10 years they've put enough money aside into investments where Business for Transformation doesn't make a profit on any of the investments. What it does is it rolls 100% of the profits back into that NGO. So think of this more as, when you are working at your own job, but you put a little money aside every year and you save it and invest it so that when you're older, you have a retirement fund. This is kind of the same ideology where we're asking NGOs and nonprofits, hey, don't eat everything that you take. Maybe set aside a certain percentage of your income so that we can invest it so that maybe in 10 or 15 years, your long-term strategy will become financially secure.
Many thanks, Cody and Art Nicholson.
Thank you for
further
having us.
questions? Yeah.
This is something that the missionary community is dealing with, you may already know about, but I'd just like to hear, how is the response for missionaries when they go to retirement, which is a problem for some churches because they don't have a plan how to deal with a retired missionary. Is this a solution to that?
Thank you.
To give you an example, in the United States, many people who are missionaries opt out of our Social Security program for their pension. And the idea is that they're going to save that money on the side and build their own fund, because Social Security is notorious low returns. But the reality is they never save the money. So to answer one of the questions, we have a very good friend who is in the ministry in south of France. And he has saved a little money, but it's not enough for retirement for him to live on. And so he has invested his money in one of our properties, and we've been able to give him a return that is enough to sustain him when he comes back to the United States and begins to retire. Now, it's different for every people. He did save some money. That's something that's I worry about with a lot of my friends who are missionaries. And in this gentleman's case, he's 70 years old. So he's close to my age. So I worry about that sort of thing. The whole idea behind this idea is to take money that people would normally give and produce income so you can bless the kingdom of Christ, whether it would be retirement, whether it would go to a children's fund in Germany, wherever it would go, the money would be produced and it would be coming consistently, sustainably for a long time.
Thanks, Art. Cody and Art will be with us over the next 3 days, so whenever you have questions, they are available here in the International Lounge, so don't hesitate to speak to them. We will follow up with entrepreneurs now from Norway, and I will give the microphone to Anja Di Marco, who will moderate the next part.
Thank you so much, Timo.
Yeah, you guys can have a seat and we'll say goodbye to you for now. We'll see you tomorrow again. Wir verabschieden uns jetzt von Timo. Er hat jetzt einen weiteren Termin und übergeben jetzt. Ich werde jetzt mit euch weitermachen. You can have a seat, yes, feel free. You can have a seat too. Just stay with us. Very, very warm welcome to you on stage. We had a nice talk before, so we actually have a little connection. It's funny because our nanny, who's just staying at our house, was your nanny before, so we found some base here and common ground,
Germans
right?
are everywhere.
Yeah, Germans are everywhere. And in Hawaii, that's interesting. But you have a very interesting topic. And you're talking about startups, and you just have that book. I would just let you have the stage for a while, and then we'll go into some questions, okay?
Great.
All right?
Thank you. Let's see. It's going to come up here in a second. There we go. So we heard from some American friends, great innovators in their field, and we have to admit in Europe that you know, we have a great heritage in Europe. We're good at a lot of things, but we have to admit the Americans beat us at entrepreneurship still. But get ready. We're going to get there. And it will take a while, but we will get there. So what our aim as the Christian think tank based in Norway, we wanted to one, be part of the solution at this youth unemployment that we heard earlier today. There's so much youth unemployment in Southern Europe and Eastern Europe, 25 to 50, 60%, and that's one of the key social problems. How do we deal with that? Well, we need to stir the spirit of entrepreneurship, the culture of entrepreneurship, and what we wanted to do was to have an overlook at what's already going on the ecosystems for entrepreneurship in Europe, and where are the hope for the future, the torches that show us the way forward. So we traveled through 6 cities in Europe and looked at the best practices from Berlin, Tallinn, London, Lisbon, Oslo, where I'm living, in Norway, and also, Lisbon, Portugal. to find the best practices and then to meet some entrepreneurs. And then we were spreading the book for free to students all around Europe to inspire them to think of this. And then we're aiming at challenging politicians and city developers to improve the tax structures, the infrastructure for entrepreneurship to speed up this process so we beat the Americans sooner than later. So I'll take you through this. A little bit about my background. I started a few companies. I'm not going to bore you with all that. I was in a city council of Bergen, the second largest city of Norway, for the Christian Democrats for 4 years. I studied economics and history, so all that flows into starting a think tank, the first Christian think tank in Norway, and I think we have something to offer. So the idea is to multiply this in Europe in the years to come, to empower Christians to be part of solving society's problem on a wider scope than we're doing today. So just to give you a little critique about our own country, this is the Financial Times this spring, or this fall, last fall. They came to see Oslo Innovation Week, which is our pride, where we show off all the entrepreneurship going on in Oslo. And then the editor says, Norway's oil wealth swamps innovation. So he wasn't too impressed. We have too much oil. 70% of our exports in Norway is oil-based. So we have to turn around and make some more baskets to fill. So that was just a little bit to hit on ourselves. We're good in Norway, but we're better at skiing than entrepreneurship. So we need to work at it. A fun thing as a Christian think tank, and I'd start off with this, is that we have a great heritage that I'd like to share with you. 200 years ago, there was this lay preacher. His life story is intriguing, but he basically was an entrepreneur. He hit the glass ceilings. He couldn't break through the very elitistic, hierarchical society in Norway 200 years ago. Came back to his dad's farm and was depressed. But then on his farm, he had this huge encounter with God as a 25-year-old. And it fired him up. He totally changed. He, first of all, realized he was loved by God, so he didn't have to fight to be good enough for God. The second issue was that he had a new vision to impact his nation. So he started traveling, preaching about getting people back to God, and a revival broke out. And for 3 years, this revival went on. He wrote books on the way. So in a population of 800,000, he sold 200,000 books, much more than I will do. You can help me by buying one copy at the end. But he impacted, he was the first grassroots movement in Norway. But then after a while, he realized the people are poor. They're hungry from year to year. So he started businesses, and his group of friends started businesses all around the country. He started 30 businesses in 5 years himself. He was a business angel for 150, invested, he was advising. And this movement changed Norway. It was one of two. He was one of two people that the secular historians said changed Norway from poor to being one of the wealthier countries in Europe over 100 years in the 19th century. So this is our Christian heritage. We were pioneers. We were solving the problems, and today we inherited this. And Christians in Norway, and I would say in Europe, are good at caring for the poor, and we're good at running schools. But where are the entrepreneurs? So that's kind of my passion, to see more Christians partnering with us and starting businesses, connecting with what's going on in the secular world. So basically, we need to take more of our young people in our churches and send them off to hackathons and startup communities in Berlin and elsewhere to transform them into be entrepreneurs, and so that we take part in this revolution that's going on in Europe now. So you can read about that. There's an appendix in the book about Hauge and this case study. It's from Norway, but it could be anywhere. It's a great case study on how to change the nation. So we basically travel to Europe to check out what works and what doesn't. I'll go a little bit back and say that this crisis that we know is going on didn't start in 2008, but it started in the 70s already. So we had European coal and steel no longer competitive. The European economies were not able to transform and change. Key industrial cities shrunk. In Norway, we discovered oil, so we were the lucky ones. But Europe as a whole got stuck in the 70s. Today, we see the oil price dropping. Okay, it's stabilizing a little bit these days, but still, we're seeing the fourth industrial revolution hit us. It's going to totally change our world in 10, 15, 20 years to come. In this situation, none of the 15 largest IT companies in the world are European, so we're way behind. Europe is still unable to change fast enough. Some cities are shrinking. We're not making enough kids. You know all the problems. This is the worst examples. We throw rocks at the politicians and we vote for the neo-Nazis. This is not the solution. There are some cities that are doing it. They're rocking things up. Berlin, Tallinn are two examples. So I'm just going to share very quickly with you 3 success criteria that we found in visiting these 6 cities. 1, there was a well-functioning ecosystem for entrepreneurs. There was like a family atmosphere where all the public and the private institutions were cheering each other up, sharing best practice. They were transferring their experiences to one another. And again, when we went around in these environments, where were the believers? We found a few, but very few. Where are they? Where is our youth? At Hillsong conferences in London or here? We need to bring them here, but send them off to Gründer parties in Berlin and Lisbon, and they're happening all over the place. Send your kids to entrepreneurial activities and empower them, please. Second criteria, there was a vision, and this is what we found in Germany among the politicians. There was a clear vision for entrepreneurship to be a third path or a third career path. In Germany, the Minister of Commerce is saying you could be employed by the state, you can be employed by big companies, but you can also make your own startup. That's a thinking that we need to install in the future students. And that vision has to be strong, and we found that in Germany. Number 3, entrepreneurship runs through the whole economy, and we've got something to learn from the UK. Okay, so they left the EU, but they're still part of us in Europe. And they have had, for several years, had a tax incentives where you get up to 50% tax deductions if you invest in startups. This pulls money from real estate to startups, and it's a huge need. So we were actually been one of 4 or 5 major actors in Norway who's been able to lobby the government to introduce this in Norway the next year. And this is something we need to see in more. It's already happening in a few European countries. We need to do it in many more places to attract more capital. Also, we saw in the UK, 60-year-olds are taking a step to make their second career in their 60s. Europeans cannot retire age 57 anymore. They need to work a little harder and do something new when they're 60 when they have experience. Partnering with the young 20-year-old is smart. Just as an example, in our co-working space in Oslo, we have accountancy where key top leaders from top corporations have retired, but they're part of starting a new accounting company, and it's growing like crazy. So 60-year-olds have a great second opportunity to get involved with the energy of the young. Okay, towards the end, a few examples. We interviewed this guy in Berlin, Gleb Tritis, serial entrepreneur, age 31. He's now hired by Lufthansa to start Lufthansa's innovation hub to take the knowledge from the entrepreneurial scene and plug it into the old lady Lufthansa, which has been flying around for 70 years. Airplanes are new, but their services are getting old, so they need to transform their business, and they hired somebody who knew how to do it. So what is he saying as his tip for our future entrepreneurs? Build good teams, and build good teams. A good team can create something good from a bad idea, but a bad team can ruin even the best of ideas. That's applicable to everything you do. We need to build good teams. Frank Sinatra sang, "I did it my way." Trump is probably saying the same, but the future of entrepreneurship is not single individuals, it's teams. Okay, he also said, fail fast, dare to make mistakes, and that's something we really need to learn in Europe. It's possible to make mistakes and learn from them, and then move on. You can read the book to get more examples. I want to finish up with this girl. She's the princess of entrepreneurial activity in Norway right now. She had an idea August 2015 as she met a mother with a child who died, a teenager who died from cancer. She said the worst thing was not the treatment, which was hard, but it was her loneliness. She grew more and more lonely as she was out of touch with her family and friends, or friends. So she studied social interaction, or interaction design, the study of the interaction between humans and machines. And she said, this is the problem I want to solve. So she created this avatar robot. August 2015, she had the idea. She said, I will make the prototype in December 2015. She did. I will sell by August 2016. She did. And now she's, after just 6 months in business, she's moving to the Netherlands to start the first Dutch office. No Isolation is the company, and it's growing like crazy. She's an exciting example, and I want to see more believers like her. And I don't think she is a believer, but we need to see more believers being part of this community. And that's where I want to end up. Well, this is something we have to learn. We have to be better salespeople. At the bottom end, we need to learn to sell our products. And that goes for Christians in business as well. So I want to wrap up by saying, buy the book, get to know what's happening in Europe, give it to your nephew or your son or daughter. But we desperately need to plug more believers into the startup community in order to see that we as Christians who have faith in God are also part of the solutions, creating new jobs in Europe that we desperately need. That will be more money for our ministries at the end of the day, our traditional ministries, but it will also mean that we are part of solving the crucial question of the future of Europe that